these people are not Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart. Even within popular rock music, they're certainly, talent-wise, they're not Paul McCartney. And yet, there was something. It happened again with, I hated grunge, but I admit that grunge, I will admit that Nirvana was good, and then everything that followed after was horrible. So that one band or that one movement within music that shakes everything up. And then generally, the order reorientates itself and kind of exists more or less as it did before, but slightly different. And I think that's what needs to happen in almost any human endeavor, any sort of way of thinking. Every now and then you got to shake things up. There has to be some sort of revolution. And then, basically take even the Russian Revolution. Eventually society reorientated itself and the Tsar was replaced by a communist dictatorship. So it's different, but pretty much the same. But different enough that it could be considered, a path, a sort of a stop on the path of development. And I think we've seen that in our own country this past week with the NDP's rise and the Conservatives' rise, too. Our political order has changed here in Canada. So every now and then you need something like that to sweep away the old way of thinking. And so I'm a liberal. I have been my whole life. The Liberal Party will now either disappear or it will be forced to confront the new reality and come up with a new vision. Mm-hmm. And I think that's good for the party. I think they should have done it 10 years ago, and maybe this wouldn't have happened. But you know what? That's good for the party. Time to get new people in there, younger people, and new ways of thinking. And sometimes you need a kick in the butt. And in the UFO world, a book like Max, whether you believe in the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis or not, it's a kick in the butt. It's the equivalent of 3 chords in the truth or an orange crush or whatever you want to call it. That's what the crypto-terrestrials was, and that's why anyone who's interested in the subject should read it.
It's a great book. It's a great book. I think it's fantastic.
Pages, so.
Yeah, it's a short one. And you know what? The Green Party gained a seat in the House, so it's looking up.
Well, I like to say that Elizabeth May gained a seat in the House. The sort of the Don Quixote of Canadian politics finally found a way. Her wheel stopped spinning. But eventually, I think anybody could probably get elected if you keep running in different seats time and time again. So
I hear you.
Good for her. She'll cause a ruckus, and that's probably a good thing too.
It is a good thing because the system has to be shook up, and a lot of these platforms from Green Party members are really valid concerns. I mean, we're facing an ecological apocalypse, and so that's a kick in the good direction. Listen, we could talk philosophically forever, I think, Paul, but I want to get to the New Frontier Symposium. But I have to ask you first: what nudged you? Okay, first of all, you must have made a movie before the New Frontier Symposium. Was it, do you believe in magic that came first?
I made several. Actually, that's what I do for a living. I'm a film and television producer-director, so I've made far more programming about non-UFO related subjects than I have UFOs, including 2 seasons of a classical music series for Bravo.
Wow.
So UFOs are just part of what I do.
I forgot to segue into that. I apologize.
I've done Stanton Friedman is Real, which is a biography of Stan for Space and Bravo. Do You Believe in Magic, which was kind of a part 2 of that, where we delved more closely into the specific issue of Majestic 12. And what was the other one? Aztec 1948, which was a film I'd done about the alleged crash of a flying saucer in Aztec, New Mexico, which, Aztec is a hoax, but I did the film anyway. Mm-hmm. While the New Frontier Symposium was going on, I was just after that, I left to shoot a film on cattle mutilations called Fields of Fear.
All right.
And I was halfway through shooting Best Evidence, actually, at the time. So.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to make the segue that you have been deeply involved in the arts for, your whole life, pretty much. I just kind of assumed that through some sort of telepathic osmosis that people would have known that about you already. I'm sorry about that.
Out of my way not to be pigeonholed as the UFO filmmaker. Cause
I do apologize for that.
No, I got introduced to Jeff Regan when he was a cabinet minister once at a Christmas party for the film industry. He said, here's Paul Kimball. And I had met Regan before, but the introduction was, here's Paul Kimball. He's a UFO filmmaker. And it was like, no. Maybe, but no, I'm just a filmmaker, thanks.
So what sparked you to make these UFO films? Was it like a nudge from Stan, or what piqued your interest to get involved in the films about?
Dirty, filthy lucre. They're profitable. Not that profitable. I'd done 2000, I had done something for Bravo. I was just starting out, really. And I had done Julius Caesar for Bravo and had finished that. And I was thinking, okay, well, Bravo was part of the Chum Group, so the same group, Moses and Eimer's group, that owned Bravo also owned Space. I said, I like science fiction. I know Stan. Stan's got a great story, I think a great personal story. So I said, this would be an interesting film to do, a kind of biography of Stan Friedman.
Okay.
And I just so happened that Space and Bravo, both owned by the same group, I had a relationship with them, so I pitched it to them, and they said, yeah, okay, Stan's, from their point of view, they would say he's well known, so that means we'll probably be able to get a lot of viewers.
Yeah.
So sure, here's the money, kid, go out and do it. And it wasn't really because I had an interest in UFOs. I did have a slight interest in UFOs, but I really hadn't sort of gotten into it. It was doing that film on Stan, the research that I had to do. I joined a lot of UFO groups like UFO Updates and stuff like that. It's how I met Mac Tonys, actually. I joined UFO Updates as an email list that used to be popular here in Canada. Those things are kind of passé now.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a member of it as well. I had noticed a couple of posts that he had made, and so either he emailed me or I emailed him, but somehow we connected and eventually became very good friends. So, social networking, there you go.
Yeah.
But I did it because it was a project that I believed could get funded and, I could make some money on, to be perfectly honest, and also that I found interesting. And those are the three criteria that, as a professional, I have to employ with any film. It has to be something I can get made, something I can make some money on, because, I have to eat, and something that interests me. So I don't do projects that don't interest me personally, no matter how much money someone's, $1 million maybe. You'd have to throw an awful lot of money to get me to be a gun for hire. Generally speaking, I spent my career doing things that, interest me and trying to find ways to get them made. And so the Friedman film was one of them, yeah.
So then, I guess, you jumped into Do You Believe in Magic after that, in the same vein of filmmaking?
Actually, the follow-up to Stanton Friedman is Real was a documentary about Denise Jokic. Very good. I mean, to say very good is kind of not quite on. She's probably one of the best cellists in the world. So I did a film about her in 2002, and then the next one I did after that was Do You Believe in Magic? So I went UFOs, classical music, UFOs.
All right. So how did the New Frontier Symposium come about? Is that something you and Mac and Stan had been toying with?
Nope. I just dreamed it up on my own. I don't even want to think about how much money I lost on that. But, back in the days when I was rolling in clover, I think it was out of the Do You Believe in Magic? A number of these projects, a film producer always gets to keep a line item that's called corporate overhead. Basically, out of a budget, if you have a $150,000 budget, you can keep $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 out for running your company and stuff for the next few months. Fine. Instead of using it for what I should have used it for, which was running my company, I took the money from one or two of those projects and said, hey, let's have a UFO conference, and let's do it the way that I've always wanted to do. I mean, it costs a lot of money to fly those guys up and put them up and everything.
Yeah.
So I lost $7,000 or $8,000 doing that. And money well spent, yeah.
Well, you know what? It is. I enjoyed myself. I thought it was great. It was kind of disappointing, the turnout, you're right. But
well, the thing I should have done, and that I still kick myself to this day and will until I die, I'm a filmmaker. I have access to cameras, but I didn't film it. So the only people who will ever know about it, I didn't even record it. So the only people who will ever know about the New Frontier Symposium or know what went on were the 55 or so people that were there. And from a business point of view, it was complete stupidity. I could have filmed all that and, made a lot of money on broadcasting or whatever the lectures. But all I was really interested in was I had gone to a number of UFO conferences, and I hadn't liked any of them. Sure, you'd have one or two good speakers, but then you have a lot of kooky people too.
Yeah.
And I said, what would happen? I want to run a conference where I bring in the people that I would want to see if I went to somebody else's UFO conference. So I want to bring in serious people, even if I disagree with them. I want to, like Stan, I don't agree with him on his conclusions, but he's a serious guy, he's well-known, and he's thoughtful, articulate, and he has interesting things to say. So let's put Stan Friedman up there with Nick Redfern, and I didn't want it to just be about UFOs. So Nick spoke about, what did he speak about? Oh, crypto-terrestrials, Bigfoot, I think.
Yeah, cryptids, yeah.
Yeah, Mac, totally not about UFOs, at least not directly. He's, without notes, I mean, if you were there, anybody, the 55 people who were there saw something special. Mac Toney spoke for an hour and a half with no notes, and sounded like he was reading off a teleprompter. That's how good the guy was. It was just the stream of intelligent, articulate stream of consciousness thinking about what our future as human beings are going to be. And I think the people that were there caught something special that I wish I had recorded, frankly.
Man, I was blown away.
Yeah, no, he was amazing. Will Wise spoke about Project Blue Book, which was very particular to the UFO phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Bishop spoke about the contactee movement, which is UFO history.
Yep.
And who's the other guy? Oh, I spoke about best evidence. And Robert Zimmerman is a space historian in the United States, and he came up. I'd heard him on Coast to Coast, and I just found him interesting because he had written a book about the Soviet space program. And I said, well, you know what? I'd just like let's bring this guy up. It has nothing to do with UFOs, but I think if you're talking about outer space, maybe we should talk about our own adventures in outer space. So he had this great story he told about Russian cosmonauts who had to go out and fix, I can't remember, maybe it was the Soyuz capsule or something. But they're in space. They had to go out and fix something on some spaceship they were flying. And they only had one spacesuit, and they had a rip in the spacesuit. So they had to duct tape it. You're in the vacuum of space.
Right.
It's you and the great beyond. And he's telling this story about these crazy Russian cosmonauts who the only way they could survive was to go out and fix the thing. The suit was broken. So Canadians everywhere would relate to this. They used duct tape, like red, green in space.
Yeah.
Duct tape to duct tape the hole so that they could go out in space. And then you go, wow, we really are an amazing civilization. We've created this thing, duct tape, that allows us to do anything, including survive in space. So yeah, it was a very eclectic group, and I think that was from an attendance point of view the problem. If I had just had a bunch of UFO speakers, like all of those other conferences I had gone to, I think the attendance would have tripled or quadrupled because I just could have billed it as a UFO conference. There's a market for that.
Yeah.
But for me, I was young and stupid, and I wasn't interested in making money, so I didn't film it. I didn't make DVDs. And I just brought in people that I wanted to hear. And so it was kind of like when Gaddafi spends $1 million to bring Beyonce in for a private concert. It was me spending $8,000 to bring my friends up and people that I wanted to hear speak. And you know what? 55 other friends joined me for the experience.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a free-form kind of thing. I liked it a lot. Rob Zimmerman's Bob Dylan's real name, incidentally.
Yes, I mentioned that to him and said, yeah, that's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
So,
anywho.
Yeah. They're nothing alike.
Let's talk about best evidence and these 10 best sightings. I don't want to get into too much detail, but I want to talk about. You mentioned Shag Harbor in there as one of the best sightings in history, and that's right here in our home, Nova Scotia, the world's only government documented UFO crash in the world. And I had Don Ledger on the program season 1, 2 last year, and we spoke about. It's a fascinating case. How long did this film take to get right down to it? To make?
I started filming it, I think, in April of 2006, and it was delivered in May of 2007. So it took a year to shoot on and off and edit and put together, and it had been in development for a couple of months before then. So, yeah, a year and a half, I guess. And I was working on a few other things, too. You never really just do one thing.
Yeah.
So you got to keep a bunch of projects juggling it all at once. But, yeah, the Shag Harbor case is interesting. You're right. It is a UFO crash. That doesn't mean it was an extraterrestrial spacecraft, which I think a lot of people, if they heard UFO crash, they go, oh, it was this aliens crashed in Shag Harbor. No. Something went down in Shag Harbor that to this day remains unidentified. So, and as Don would point out, and he does in the film, one of the very interesting things about it is usually what happens is you'll have a bunch of witnesses who'll say, call the police or the military up and say, hey, we saw a UFO. The police or the military will show up and they'll go, nope, it can be explained as this, 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 this. Here, you had a bunch of people who saw something in the sky go down in the harbor. Most of them thought it was a crashed airplane.
Yeah.
The military shows up, does an investigation, and right there on their reports, they call it a UFO. So it's kind of a flip of what usually happens in these cases. And there's a couple other cases in our film where, people, very good witnesses, say UFO, and the military says, no, it was a cloud, or no, it was a civilian airliner, trying to explain it away. Here, the exact opposite. Most of the witnesses initially thought it was an airplane crashing and reported it as such. The military actually showed up and said, no, we don't know what that was. That's a UFO. And so it remains to this day, 44 years later, an unidentified flying object that crashed or went into the water. That's probably the best way that you could put it, because maybe it wasn't a crash. Maybe it was a controlled entry. Who knows? There's a long history of USOs, undersea objects, that a guy named I spoke at the Shag Harbor UFO conference a couple of years ago. They had a researcher named Carl Feint there, who his beat is